This is the Honorable Attorney General's reaction to the judgment of the United Kingdom Commercial Court on the matter between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Process and Industrial Development Limited, otherwise known as P&ID. Let me start by making a brief introduction. As you may all be aware by now, the Honorable Mr. Justice Robin St. John Knowles of the United Kingdom Commercial Court today handed down a historic judgment in the suit where the Federal Republic of Nigeria, otherwise known as FRN, moved to set aside the arbitral award of $9.6 billion, but which has now, with interest, now come to $11 billion United States dollars, made against Nigeria in 2017 in favor of P&ID for an alleged breach of a gas supply and processing agreement it purportedly entered into with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to establish a gas processing plant in Calabar, for which P&ID never secured any land site. The arbitral award had over the years placed the assets of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and those of its agencies all over the world at the risk of attachment, erosion of foreign reserves, and distortion of monetary, fiscal, and other policies of government, with attendant dire consequences for Nigeria and its people. These emphasized the need for the FRN to vigorously challenge and resist the enforcement of the award by P&ID. The High Court has today ruled that the Federal Republic of Nigeria's challenge to the arbitration award granted against it to an obscure hedge fund-backed BVI shell entity, Process and Industrial Development Limited, in 2017 has been successful. The judgment handed down today found that the award had been obtained by fraud and in a way which was contrary to public policy. In particular, the judge concluded that P&ID obtained the award only by practicing the most severe abuses of arbitral process. It has been a night of long knives indeed. The success marks the culmination of a decade of legal action and is not just a victory for the people of Nigeria, but any similar target of corruption and fraud. In the words of the lead counsel to Nigeria, Mark Owell, KC, for Nigeria, which the court, that is the High Court in England, endorsed, quote, P&ID was exactly the type of entity that was prepared to engage in bribery to achieve its aim, to undermine the administration of justice in Nigeria in the pursuit of riches beyond dreams of avarice. This successful result is a decisive victory for the people of Nigeria, who stood to lose over $11 billion United States dollars for the Nigerian administration, and for the Nigerian administration, which has now reached a milestone in its mission to challenge the scourge of corruption. The judgment also serves as a damning indictment of predatory international investors who should now rightfully be deterred by preying upon Nigeria and other developing nations to satisfy their greed. P&ID and its associates, both Nigeria and the world over, shamelessly attempted to defraud the country and enrich themselves through sharing the Federal Republic of Nigeria's privileged document, fraud, bribery, and corruption on an industrial scale. Those efforts, which took place over many years, have now finally been uncovered for all of us to see. It is imperative to point out that several agents of P&ID made overtures, even as at last week, to the Federal Republic of Nigeria for settlement on this case. However, the resolve of the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, not to go hand in gloves with fraudulent counterparties or condone corruption informed the position of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to hold fast to its position not to settle. Indeed, earlier this morning, the President at the opening ceremony of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group reiterated this cardinal position of his administration. History has been made today, as this judgment is no doubt significant in the annals of Nigeria and indeed Africa. This judgment has vindicated the government and should serve as a pointer to others who might be nursing or nurturing the plan to swindle the country. The success recorded was as a result of a close interagency collaboration of the federal government team comprising of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, Federal Ministry of Justice, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, otherwise known as FEC, the Nigerian Police Force, Central Bank of Nigeria, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, MPR, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Department of State Security Service, DSS, and the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, otherwise known as NFIU. There will be further hearing by the United Kingdom Court on the heels of this judgment to determine costs payable by P&ID and others in the matter. Thank you very much.
Administration is always desirous to give Nigerians adequate information as they require. There is no holds back, so to say. Everything that government is doing, government has decided that it will continue to be as transparent, as honest, and as accountable as possible to Nigerians, because this is your government. Everything government is doing, it is important that Nigerians know about it all the time. And it is in that spirit that we welcome you once again to this press briefing after the third Federal Executive Council in the life of this administration. With me are the Ministers of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Chief Wale Edun, the Honorable Minister for Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Dele Alake, Minister of Education, Professor Tahir, and the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Betta Edu. I will invite the Minister of Education to give his own part of the briefing. Thank you very much. After which, of course, after each of these short briefings, we'll entertain questions from the Nigerian press. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished members of the press. Two things I want to mention and comment on, which are very important part of the deliberations and resolve in the Council today. One is additional funding for the training and the empowerment of adolescent girls in Nigeria. It's been one of the major policies of government to target the education, training, and empowerment of young girls in the society. Initially, from 7 participating states, we now have about 11 additional states participating in this project, which will lead to the empowerment of girls between 10 to 20 right across the participating states. This is a very major escalation of this program that is meant to empower our girls, our teachers, and the provision for additional schools in the country. The second, which is actually quite in line with part of the agenda of this government to ensure that the number of girls and people out of school are reduced, if not eliminated altogether. Then secondly, the Federal Executive Council has always been, well, the media and members of the public have always complained about the council being a contract awarding institution. Today, the council took a very major decision to review policy in that direction so that the Public Procurement Act is brought into practice, as it were, as to the handling of projects and government activities in Nigeria. So that is up for a review so that the Public Procurement Council can entertain or exercise its powers under that act, and then the council will now concentrate on issues of national importance, on issues of policy. So I thought these are some of the things that are worthy of note.
Thank you, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Your own view, please.
Thank you very much. Today was a very useful and powerful session at the Federal Executive Council, where the Chairman of Council and members of Council took decision to ratify the protocol on the protection of the rights of older persons in Nigeria. We signed on to the African Charter, and this has made us one of the countries within Africa that has approved that older people be protected and should not be discriminated against at any level. This gives them a lot of protection, and the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is interested in their welfare and protecting their rights. Beyond this, the council today, under the chairman of council, also approved for the formation or the implementation of the, sorry, can I take that again? Okay, thank you. So also today, please take the other one off, and the reason why I'm saying so is because the word implementation is off it, right? So take that off. Also today, the council approved for the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund to actually be put together under a governing board, and then of course the implementation of that Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund will be carefully worked out by members of the committee. Of course, it will involve the Minister for Finance and other ministers that are relevant to the process. This is a flexible form of financing that is supposed to help Nigeria adequately respond to humanitarian crises and challenges, as well as adequately address the issue of poverty in Nigeria. This, of course, is a victory for the poor, and indeed would bring help and succor, which the Renewed Hope agenda stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Gentlemen of the press, succinctly put, I'm sure you recall my various exposures in the media in the last few weeks, and the various announcements and agenda direction that have been setting with regards to the solid mineral sector. And principally to say and state and restate again that the solid mineral sector is very critical to the economic survival of Nigeria going forward because of obvious reasons, what is happening in the global market on oil, the clamor for climate change, the movement to green energy and all of that. All of these have combined to reduce somewhat appreciably the issue of oil in international market. Of course, oil is still sold. However, the trend is going down. So if we are not careful, if we do not make conscious efforts to diversify, in a couple of years, Nigeria will find itself in economic dire straits. And if we have an abundance of solid mineral resources, why shouldn't we diversify, concentrate, exploit judiciously, proficiently, and efficiently these God-given abundant resources? So that, in essence, encapsulates the policy decisions that the Federal Executive Council approved today. It's a draft policy on the entire solid minerals sector, covering the gamut of all activities, operations, guidelines, regulatory framework, handling, sourcing, mining, everything, all the dynamics in the sector. This policy approval today that we got from the Federal Executive Council now gives us in the ministry the teeth that we've wanted to be able to now act with precision on all of those things that we have mapped out. Measures on security. You're also quite aware of illegal mining activities all over the country by both high and low. And I say that with all sense of responsibility. The artisanal, the so-called itinerant miners who just pick gold, lithium anywhere without licenses. These are so-called illegal miners. But those are the low class. We have the high class also involved in this game. So we are rejigging the security architecture involving an inter-security agency structure to ensure that we combat this menace. These and other measures are part of what the policies that the Federal Executive Council approved today. So in essence, is to give the Solid Minerals Ministry the teeth with which to act on all issues pertaining to the regulation, sourcing, handling, management, operation of all the solid minerals sector, sanitizing the environment, making it investor friendly, and ensuring the security and stability of your investment, and of course, giving out also a lot of attractions to foreign investors, both local and foreign investors. So the operation or operationalization of the solid mineral sector through the approval of today's policy is being sanitized. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. Honorable Ministers, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Essentially, today at the Federal Executive Council, I presented 5 memos which were gracefully approved by the Federal Executive Council. They were to do with concessional and in many cases zero interest financing by the World Bank and the International Development Association, which is the very concessional financing arm. The projects that were approved for funding in the power sector and then the renewable energy sector, there was a funding for states for resource mobilization program to help them with their internally generated revenue efforts. There was a project for Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment, AGILE. Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment, essentially, as it says, it's a program to support young girls from the age of secondary school age, from the age of 11 even, and to ensure that at the end of their schooling, they have one skill or the other that is marketable, as well as their academic laurels. And then finally, the 5th financing that was approved was for women project, and this is an additional project. The first one was very successful. It was all about empowering women, upscaling their skills levels, and of course, giving them some financial inclusion including in the banking system. So those were 5 loans totaling 3.45 billion naira. And as you know, the tenure is upwards of, is all around 40 years, moratorium period around 10 years, and interest very low, or in the cases of the IDA loans, 0 interest, although some fees would occur. So that's the core of what I presented to the Federal Economic Council this afternoon. In addition, I reported to the meeting that I had earlier at the Nigerian Economic Summit reported that in an attempt to boost liquidity in the all-important foreign exchange market, or rather boost the all-important issue of liquidity in the foreign exchange market, among a plethora of other measures that Mr. President has approved to be rolled out, and which the fiscal authorities on the one hand and the financial and the monetary authorities, central bank, are working on, was 2 executive orders. And those executive orders were firstly one called disclosure, depositing, repatriation, and investment of eligible foreign exchange assets, and of course related matters. The second executive order, which Mr. President has signed, is titled Foreign Currency Denominated Financial Instrument Local Issuance Program. Foreign Currency Denominated Financial Instrument Local Issuance Program, and related matters. The import of those 2 executive orders are that in an effort to boost the supply of foreign exchange to the formal market, to the money supply and reserves, of course in an effort to stabilize the currency and improve the workings of the market as a whole and make foreign currency available to importers and other eligible users. First of all, the cash that is outside the system would now have a window within which that cash could be deposited. It's a form of forbearance. It's a window of opportunity such that that cash could now be deposited within the banking system. And in addition, under the Foreign Currency Denominated Financial Instrument Local Issuance Program, there will be the issue in Nigeria of foreign currency denominated government securities that that cash could go into, whether from domiciliary account, whether the cash that has just been imported or just been deposited rather. On the one hand, there is a forbearance to bring the money outside the system into the formal system, and on the other hand, there is an outlet for those wishing, for whatever reason, to hold for a foreign currency asset, perhaps just because of the volatility that they see at the moment in the exchange rate. That outlet is there for them. So Nigerians will not only be able to put their money within the legal framework, they would also be able to invest it in foreign currency. That was the import of the 2 executive orders Mr. President signed. And as I say, it's a combination of measures that are coming out. It's not just that on its own. Thank you.
All right.
The fact that there's so much renewed interest in the solid mineral sector has actually answered a lot of the questions, especially with regards to those who are asking what kind of difference would it make from previous administrations' attempts. I do not know if you do a content analysis of previous administrations' attempts to revitalize the sector. whether there has been anything near the kind of renewed focus, the energy that we have put in it, the kind of dynamism that both the local and foreign investors are acknowledging on a daily basis. As attested to by the last week's Mineral Week, Nigerian Mining Week that we had, at least 3 different big players in the global lithium market did say it, even at the forum there publicly, that they've been in the business for over 23 years, and they've never seen a situation where there's so much focus on solid minerals in Nigeria in the last 23 years. And these are the big players in the mineral sector in the world, not locally. So that is a testament to the kind of energy that we've brought into this sector, that this government has brought into the sector. And that eloquently tells you of a clear demarcation in terms of policy conceptualization, policy formulation, policy execution, and policy monitoring. And that's the necessary thing. Yes, you can have all the plans and programs and objectives on paper. It is the passion with which you bring into anything that you set your eyes on. And once you have the passion, you have the vision, the knowledge to translate that vision into reality, and the courage with which to push through all of those critical elements that are necessary in translating policies into reality, there is nowhere else but success for you. So we've been able to demonstrate that in the last few weeks. In fact, somebody did, I don't want to be sounding immodest, but I know what the people have been saying about the differences between the previous administration's focus on solid minerals and actions and what we've been able to achieve in the last few weeks. Now, somebody did ask about the significant thing that we want to do differently. I think it's the chairman, that we want to do differently in terms of curbing illegal mining, and that previous administrations also worked with the security agencies that we also intend to work with. And what's different from our approach? It's simple, and I've said this several times too. This time around, we are injecting a large dose of technology. Yes, we have a very vast land area and porous borders as well. So the incidence of illegal mining is very, very pervasive, especially in the rural areas. And we've also traced incidents of banditry to the handiwork of illegal miners, especially foreign illegal miners. Some notorious foreigners who come to our nation sponsor banditry in the local areas with a view to driving away the local population and then moving in to start extracting, exploration and extracting our minerals. It's technology that is helping us to decipher all of this. So we are investing more heavily in injection of technology into our security architecture. And that's making a huge difference. Like I said, I'm in touch with the Chief of Army Staff, the National Security Advisor, the Inspector General of Police, and we're putting our heads together. But the difference this time around is the injection of technology into the system. And that we will see the result pretty soon. Somebody did ask also the timeline to these policies or time frame. Yes, we have the time frame, but that is not subject of public discourse for now, because there are some of the mechanisms to translate the time frame into reality that we are still putting together. Certain policies also demand gestation period. If you are versed in public administration, you will know that when you conceptualize a policy today, there's always a gestation period before it begins to translate into results. So the manifestations are going to come when we have finished with the concocting of the mechanisms. That is when we'll be very sure about the sanctity of the time frame that we are going to announce to you. But we'll do that in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth, and our brother behind. Again, we are grateful to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today for the approval given for the creation of the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund, this is a flexible form of financing that can help us get contributions from different sectors. So we're going to have contribution from government, of course, from the private sector, development partners, individuals, philanthropic individuals, and other innovative form of crowdfunding and pulling of funds together. This is to allow for emergency response to humanitarian crisis in Nigeria. Every other day we hear about crisis, the floods, and the rest of it. We need to be able to respond adequately as a country. Beyond this, the issue of poverty alleviation is one of the agendas of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his 8-point agenda, and we want to be able to tackle it headlong. How much are we looking at? Every year, we hope to be able to raise at least $5 billion within this fund, and this is from the various sources that I've mentioned and even more. And we're hopeful that with the creation of this funding, we can sit down with all the key stakeholders, including other ministries, and actually work out the full modality of implementation in Nigeria. Thank you. When he discussed about the issue of the states, so this is federal intervention. However, all our response are done in collaboration with the state government. We engage them, we sensitize them, and we work with them to achieve results. Thank you.
Main question centered on the intervention for the benefit of the adolescent girls. As I said earlier, it's the same amount of money which the finance minister referred to. So it is not a different source. And it's a very big intervention and enlargement of an existing policy. The government is concerned, our president is concerned that no girl should be out of school on grounds of poverty, and particularly at the foundation level of pre-tertiary education, the basic education level, secondary schools. And under that scheme, we'll be having close to 500 new schools across the country, especially in the participating states, in addition to providing a suitable environment for those young girls to continue their education and be supported. And then also teachers to be trained, to do what they are supposed to be doing, and be motivated to provide training and education for the young ones. Then secondly, about nomadic education, we have a number of agencies under the Ministry of Education that actually focus on out-of-school people, and we are going to ramp that up. So they will be beneficiaries, the nomads will be major beneficiaries of that scheme. We have a major reform of the education sector coming up. We just had last week the National Stakeholders Summit on it to review what has been done already. So by the end of this month, we believe the entire roadmap will be ready for implementation. Because as you know, this president believes so much in education, and as I've said elsewhere, with the right policies, he's even prepared to put in so much, about a quarter of the nation's resources into it, because we know how empowering education is. So this particular funding is a major, major contribution to the elevation of the status of girl, child in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Well, I don't have the details. We have about 7 initially were the participating states. Now 11 more are coming into it, making about 18. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, I'll reserve my own answer to the last, the Honorable Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister for Economy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The first question, Adeswa Marais, on adolescent girls. Essentially, finance is the financing or fundraising counterparty in transactions with World Bank. Ministry of Education as the implementer. I think it's a question of the more, the merrier. We cannot have, I think you'll agree with me that we cannot have too much financing for education, for adolescent girls, for women generally. So I will leave it at that. Ruth of Bloomberg. Financing for the girl child, $700 million is the size of the current project. Ruth wanted to know about the $10 billion. I had said that in terms of the, earlier today, that in terms of the all-important liquidity in the foreign exchange market to get it to start functioning where demand and supply can at least equate around a relatively stable price, which is what investors, manufacturers, and indeed the general public require. And it is the mandate of the monetary authorities to have a stable currency. In that direction, what I alluded to was the multitude of sources which I felt would bring in $10 million by year end in total. And that is number one, we expect oil revenue from NNPC to increase. Their production we expect to increase. Their costs we expect to go down. And we know security is a large part of that. Oil theft is a large part of that. We're expecting positive developments in that sphere such that contribution to the Federation account from oil revenue increases. Secondly, NNPC has the ability in the forward markets to do transactions which bring liquidity, and we know they are looking at that. Thirdly, investments as a whole, foreign direct investment. We are a destination having made major macro-fiscal moves. Mr. President has taken some bold and decisive measures to correct the government's finances and to correct the monetary and foreign exchange system, and his direction of travel is being rewarded by interest, as the Honorable Minister for Solid Minerals has just said, tremendous interest from investors, from foreign direct investors. That we expect some of that to come to fruition. Regarding sovereign wealth funds in particular, we know that that's where the big money is. The oil-rich nations are on a mission to ensure that they invest their wealth to be able to continue to earn income on investments, I will put it. And we are an interesting destination for them. And in particular, they have the ability to advance fund. Through various mechanisms, they can fund in advance, and for a nation such as ours, at a time such as this, where liquidity now matters more than in the future, that's important. Also, export proceeds are not flowing back the way they should, and we're taking steps to ensure that, one, the law is complied with, but two, that the environment is conducive and easy for exporters to bring back their proceeds. And number one condition there is that they need to feel that when they need to import raw materials or they need that foreign exchange, they will have it. It will be available for them. And finally, remittances. There's a figure of roughly $20 billion per annum that flows back to the country from Nigerians abroad and so on and so forth. That amount currently is being held offshore. So conditions are being prepared, innovations. The governor of Central Bank said earlier that they would come out with a comprehensive set of rules and regulations. Those will make it easier. They will digitize the space and they will make it conducive for all transactions except illegal ones to come within the ambit of a formal market. And those are some of the sources that I was referring to. in terms of tracking, in terms of tracking the dollars that flow in, essentially there is a 9-month window in which people have forbearance to bring their funds into the formal system. I think I've dealt with all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I was actually asked the first question about the reaction of Mr. President and members of Council on the breaking news today that Nigeria won the case instituted against it by the P&ID in the UK. Let me say that, reiterate that Nigeria actually saved $11.6 billion by that singular judgment. You recall that this is not a case that was instituted against this administration. It is against the federal government of Nigeria over the years. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inherited it, but dealt with it judiciously and expeditiously. It ensured that all legal mechanisms were put in place to get us to win that case. And so it was actually a very delightful moment during the Federal Executive Council meeting when the news filtered in that Nigeria had indeed won this case. And of course, as expected, the President was very elated, so also members of the Federal Executive Council were all very happy that that news filtered in, and this is one direction that Mr. President is going, ensuring that things are dealt with expeditiously, responsibly, and with utmost responsibility. I think that answers your questions. And then I'll come back to say that as we strive to give Nigerians credible information about activities, projects, and programs of government honestly and timely, we also crave on you all the time. I always ask that you also report, factually, so that Nigerians will be properly informed about what government is doing. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for this. Until next week again, good afternoon.